In a laboratory in Moscow, Russia, scientist Viktor Privalov begins another round of tests on his newest prototype, the A112 robot. Alongside his wife Nadia and his colleague Katya, he works on developing an extremely intelligent and versatile robot. With the machine's systems already up and running, they begin walking tests and are slightly frustrated by their invention's stumbles and movement failures. Despite this, Viktor continues his task, becoming increasingly discouraged when he notices that his robot cannot even control its strength, and for this reason ends up destroying several pieces of equipment. Trying to prevent the man from giving up on the invention, Nadia says that they will be able to improve the cognitive abilities of the prototype, and over time, the machine finally begins to walk correctly. This progress excites the trio, and throughout the training sessions, the robot becomes even more developed, leaving the team satisfied with its results. While working, Nadia receives a call from her son Misha, and as she is very busy, she refuses the call, asking the boy to try to talk to his father. Soon after, the woman asks her husband to find out what the boy needs, and when he contacts the scientist, Misha asks him to pick him up from school. The young man explains that he is not feeling well and wants to skip math class, but Viktor responds that he should stop lying and asks his son to focus on his studies. Upon hearing that response, Misha tries to argue, but the man hangs up the phone, and soon after, a group of students appears behind the boy, who is the target of several jokes. Irritated, the student heads to his class, where he asks his teacher if artists are required to know math to create their works. The woman replies that yes, they do, and explains that before creating his great paintings, the famous Leonardo da Vinci was responsible for creating several prototypes involving engineering. This explanation makes Misha even more irritated, and once again, the students in the classroom begin to tease their classmate. Hours later, the teacher collects the students' work, but Misha has not answered any of the questions and has only drawn all over the page. When she picks up the notebook, the woman praises her student's skills, but reminds him that this is a math class and decides to give him an F. Back in the lab, Viktor runs some tests with the artificial intelligence voice of his invention and is outraged to find that Nadia and Katya have added several children's models to the talking robot. Despite this, the man says they don't have time to fix it, as they are already late for a meeting where they will update the committee on the progress of the invention. Therefore, the team takes the robot inside the shipping container, and upon meeting with the scientists, the general watches the transmissions of the simulations and training performed by the machine. Realizing that A112 was unable to save its targets correctly and ended up struggling to complete the missions at the expected speed, the man is disappointed and states that the robot still needs many improvements. Trying to argue, Viktor explains that despite the flaws, the humanoid machine completed all rescue objectives, but the general refutes him, saying that the minutes of delay in each decision would only cause unnecessary casualties in the field. Finally, the man orders the inventors to improve the robot's voice modules and make it capable of reasoning and deciding its actions more quickly. On the city streets, while returning home, Misha runs into Grant, a man who cleans the city streets and is a close friend of his. The young man vents about being sent to the principal's office by his teacher, and the man tries to comfort him, saying that it's not such a bad situation, and asks if he would like him to visit the school in place of his parents. However, Misha explains that they cannot do that and thanks him for his help. At the end of the conversation, the man says goodbye to his friend, who leaves. In the laboratory, the leader of the scientists begins to talk to A112, questioning why he had such poor results on his tests. The machine replies that he may be having an unlucky day, but this only irritates the man even more. Trying to calm him down, A112 explains that he is looking at the photo of the Privalov family and asks about the notion of family values that the general had mentioned at the meeting. Upon hearing this, Viktor states that this is irrelevant, and confused, the robot asks if the scientists are his family. However, the man replies that they are not, and even says that the machine is nothing more than his work, which is disappointing him more and more. The group then leaves the laboratory, leaving A112 alone in the room. Upon reuniting with Mitya, Viktor and Nadia scold the young man for the drawing he made in his math notebook. Viktor says that his son's drawings are not good, so he must study hard so that he can become a scientist like his parents. Outraged, Misha says he will never be like his parents, leaving the man disappointed. Far away, A112 explores the laboratory in search of more knowledge, and upon finding a Russian dictionary, he looks up the word family. However, the meaning does not help the robot at all, and realizing that he needs to find a real family, he begins to walk around the place, looking for a way out. After using his blowtorch to open a passage to one of the doors, A112 travels quietly through the city and is almost hit by a tram. Soon after, the robot encounters a pair of graffiti artists, and when they are startled by the machine's voice, one of the boys ends up falling and is rescued by the robot. Despite being saved by the prototype, the boy runs away scared, and that attitude leaves A112 saddened. A few minutes after this interaction, the robot walks up to a group of workers at a construction site and asks them to end their shift due to the noise they are causing in the neighborhood. Desperate, the men run away, and confused by everything that is happening, the machine looks at the photograph it took from the laboratory, wondering where its family is. The next day, Victor and his colleagues gather in the lab and are concerned to find that the prototype has escaped. Meanwhile, in the classroom, the teacher tells her students about a robotics competition that will take place sometime in the future and suggests that all her students sign up for the contest. Upon hearing this news, Misha prepares to leave and is questioned by the teacher, who asks why he doesn't want to participate, since he considers himself an artist. This comment causes the other students to start teasing the boy, who leaves angrily. At the same time, A112 arrives at the Privalov family's apartment and uses his robotic finger to create a key and open the door. Now that it has infiltrated the place, the machine interacts with the mirror and is saddened to realize that it is still completely alone. At that moment, A112 hears the sound of the door opening and runs to hide. Upon arriving home, Mitya throws his backpack on the floor and goes to the bathroom. After washing his hands, the boy is surprised by the robot, who offers him a towel to dry himself. Frightened by the intruder, Misha bumps his elbow on the sink, and trying to help him, A112 offers him medical treatment. The young man then runs desperately to his room and climbs onto the bed to protect himself, but the robot assures him that it will not hurt him, but rather treat his injury. However, realizing that the boy is fine, he calms down and introduces himself as A112, a multifunctional rescue robot. After explaining how it broke into the apartment, the machine displays its personalized voice options, and Misha laughs at the options. Soon after, A112 explains that he is looking for a family, and shows them the photograph he took from the laboratory. Upon seeing the image, the boy becomes sad, saying that this is not a real family, since Katya and Victor only care about themselves. The robot replies that he has been feeling the same way recently, since he has just disappointed all the scientists who created him. Realizing how similar they are, Misha introduces himself to the robot, and now that he has a new friend, he decides to give him a nicer name. After thinking for a few seconds, the young man suggests the name Roby, and the machine accepts, excited about its new name. In the laboratory, the scientists meet with General Oleg, who is furious about the escape of A112 and states that it could become a threat in a short time, so it must be deactivated. Saddened to hear this, the group returns to the room, and upon noticing that his family photo is missing, Victor decides to head to his apartment to check something. At home, Misha watches TV with Robbie, and at that moment, the pair hears Victor approaching. While the robot hides, the boy answers his father, who searches every room for the missing machine. However, Robbie manages to hide easily, and as soon as the man leaves, Misha hands over his computer to increase the machine's knowledge, which reads thousands of pieces of content per second. After that, the boy takes his friend to Grant's workshop, a place he uses to create his own works. Excited, Roby observes the drawings made by the boy and asks why those works do not have perfect symmetry. Misha then replies that art does not need to be symmetrical, but rather possess beauty, and as an example, he takes the robot to the window so they can watch the sunset. All these new developments make Roby increasingly excited, and so that his friend can be considered a true artist, the young man creates an authorial signature on the robot's arm. Finally, Misha asks that the machine remain hidden for now, as he needs to go to class the next day. So Roby stays in the workshop on his own and receives a pen from his friend so he can draw if he gets bored. Far away, General Oleg listens to the report from the leader of the agents, who reveals that they have already searched a large area of Moscow, but A112 has not yet been found. Realizing the danger of the situation, the man orders his soldiers to coordinate a search of the neighborhoods around the laboratory and issues an emergency alert to citizens, asking them to report any clues they may have about the robot's location. Hours later, Victor and Nadia have dinner with Misha, and noticing her husband's discouragement, she asks him what happened. The man replies that he had a meeting with his boss, who said that the laboratory will be closed. Mitya asks why this is happening, and Victor tells him about the disappearance of A112, saying that if they don't find and destroy it in time, they may end up losing their jobs. Despite this, the boy decides to remain silent, and the next day, he goes to school. During the teacher's explanation, Anton, one of the students in the class, uses his remote-controlled robot to annoy the teacher, who becomes furious. Quickly, the boy throws his remote control at Misha, who ends up taking the blame and being expelled from the classroom before he can even say he didn't do anything. Soon after, during physical education class, The young artist hears the students talking about the missing robot, and upon hearing the absurdities being said by Anton, he sets out to confront him. However, the student is not intimidated by this and mocks Misha, who tries to attack him in a state of rage. Thanks to this, the gym teacher rushes to break up the fight, and Misha, outraged, leaves, heading for the workshop. Upon arriving at the location, the young man comes across Roby playing cards with Grant and discovers that they have already become friends. Noticing the tension in the boy's expression, the robot asks what happened, and Misha tells him about the alert created by the general, who ordered the destruction of the A-112. The young man concludes that his friend needs to hide somewhere further away from the city, and Grant mentions a forest that has had no visitors recently, as it has been affected by large fires. Upon hearing this, Misha suggests that Roby try to deal with the fire, as this will prove that he wants to help humans with their problems. This idea excites the trio, but at that moment, a group of police officers knock on the workshop door, ordering Grant to open it immediately. Trying to delay them, the man goes to the door and says he can't do that because he's too busy. However, the officers do not accept this answer and prepare to break in. Quickly, Misha and Roby head for the terrace, and so they can escape. The robot carries his friend on his back, allowing him to use his jet propulsion to fly across the buildings. The police then report to headquarters that A-112 is carrying a human prisoner, and continue to pursue the target, who flees across the terraces of several buildings. Thanks to all that chasing, Misha ends up dropping his cell phone on the ground, and when she realizes they are about to be surrounded, Roby decides to make an even bigger jump, managing to escape the authorities. Later, the news reports on the escape of the rebel robot, and Grant is interviewed by one of the journalists, who end up considering him a rescued hostage, freeing the man from any punishment by the authorities. At the same time, Roby and Misha talk in the middle of a building under construction, and the boy says he is outraged by everything they are saying about his friend. The robot then replies that his difficulty in communicating ended up causing major problems during his tests, so it is possible that there is something wrong with him. Misha disagrees, saying that his friend is an extremely useful and kind robot. These words cheer Roby up, and after giving his companion a thermal blanket, the machine plays a movie so they can watch it together. Minutes later, Misha realizes that this will be the first night he won't receive a good night from his mother, and the robot replies that he can take him home right now if he wishes. However, the boy refuses, saying that they will destroy his friend if they do so, and realizing how much the young man cares about his safety, Roby is moved. The next morning, the pair wake up to the sound of workers talking downstairs at the construction site, and Misha says that in order to cross without attracting attention, they need to get some disguises. In addition, the boy explains that they can take a bus to the forest and put out the fires to show the authorities that Roby has good intentions. At the same time, at home, Victor and Nadia receive a visit from Katya, who reveals that the laboratory has already been closed. The man then leaves to check if there is any news about his son's whereabouts, and far away, Roby and Misha arrive at the city circus. After interacting with some employees, the duo manages to borrow a clown costume, allowing the robot to walk around town without being noticed as the fugitive machine. Minutes later, Misha asks Roby to remain in disguise for a while so that he can go alone to buy the tickets, but at that moment, he is surprised by Anton and Olya, his classmates. Confused to find the missing boy, the pair ask what happened, and to prove the robot's kindness, Misha decides to call him. Upon discovering that the clown is none other than the fugitive machine, the students are frightened, but the young man explains that Roby is his friend, and they are trying to escape so that he will not be destroyed. Far away, Victor tries to argue with Oleg not to close his laboratory, but the general says it's already decided and that he will destroy the robot himself when he finds it. Disappointed, the scientist gives up trying to convince his superior and observes the place with Katya, feeling frustrated at having failed in his biggest project. Meanwhile, Misha asks his colleagues to stay with Roby, as he needs to buy the tickets, and begs them not to tell anyone about what they are doing. Olya promises that she will not do anything to compromise her colleague, but as soon as the boy walks away, Anton questions the robot, asking if he really knows how to do these incredible things. Upon hearing this, Roby is excited to demonstrate his usefulness, and after taking off his clown costume, he performs various movements in front of the boy, who takes out his cell phone and begins to record him. This attitude makes Olya angry, but when asked why he is doing this, Anton says that he didn't promise anything to Misha, so he will use those recordings to gain millions of followers on social media. After this cowardly betrayal, the boy leaves, and Roby tries to console the girl, who is disappointed by it all. At the same time, Misha ends up being intercepted by a pair of guards, who discover that he is the missing boy. Minutes later, Victor receives a call from the police station and is relieved to hear that his son has been found by the authorities. Soon, the recordings posted by Anton reach Oleg's team, who decide to go to the student so they can question him. At the police station, Victor meets Misha, and after hugging his son, he questions why the young man did not tell him what he knows about A-112. The boy then replies that Roby is his friend, not the rebel machine that the general announced in his warning. In addition, Misha says that his classmates are with the robot at this very moment, and asks his father to trust him and follow him to the location, as long as he promises not to report the robot. Although reluctant, Victor accepts the deal and follows his son. Still in the same place, Roby gets a new look with Olya's makeup kit when Misha shows up with his dad. After a few seconds of conversation with the robot, Victor realizes that Roby has really learned to communicate better, as well as becoming an extremely kind and friendly creature. At that moment, a squad of police vehicles appears on the streets, and realizing that it wasn't his father who called those men, Misha realizes that they are in trouble. The group quickly flees toward a cargo ship dock, and before they can hide, they end up surrounded by soldiers. Wanting to end the situation once and for all, Oleg orders Victor to remove the children from near the robot so they can neutralize it with their electromagnetic weapon. However, the scientist refuses to do so, and the general decides to remove them by force. The soldiers then begin to approach to deal with the group, who gather to protect Roby. At that moment, one of the containers being carried by the crane has its cable break, causing it to start falling toward the group. Noticing the object approaching, Roby doesn't think twice and runs to hold the container by himself so he can protect his friends. In a few seconds, the robot's body begins to collapse due to the enormous weight, and he yells for Victor and the children to get away from there. Desperate, Misha screams for his friend, but before he can be helped, Roby is completely crushed by the container. That scene surprises Oleg, and minutes later, the police remove the giant container from on top of the robot. Saddened, Misha approaches to say goodbye to his best friend, and Victor comforts his son. However, before they leave the scene, the boy hears Roby reactivating, and the group is extremely happy to notice that their friend managed to survive the impact of the container. Now that they are reunited, the team helps the robot get up, and they leave. Sometime later, Misha shows the drawings he made to recount his journey with his robot friend, and shows the artwork to Olya and Roby, who are proud of his performance. Finally, the group gets together for dinner, and Roby goes to get Nadia's cell phone so he can finally have a photo of his new family. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.